Move forward. Okay, perfect. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Stress Management Workshop. This is the CTV Foundation project, and basically, what this is all about is providing people with tools and access to tools for stress management and for mental health issues, or helping people navigate through mental health or domestic violence. So today's session will be mainly on stress management. How are we going to manage our stress during, times where we're very stressed or anxious or something has happened, and we're trying to manage that. So this presentation will be done, or workshop will be done by Loretta, who is a psychotherapist. But once again, I'll touch on that later on. So welcome to our first online sessions. We will be having at least 2 online sessions a month, and they will have different topics which will let people know more about. You can also find the different sessions that are going to be taking place on our website. I will share that to everyone as well at a later point during the presentation and the workshop. Just a few things as well. After the workshop, if everyone can send me their email address, or if you can put your email address on the chat now, because I will be sending a feedback form, and we need this feedback form so that we can have more donations to be able to put this on for free, basically. And I'm not sure if I've introduced myself. My name is Victoria Lewis. I am the life coach and program manager of CTV Foundation. So nice to meet you all, and I hope you enjoy the workshop. So as I mentioned before, the agenda for today would be just for you to know what we're about, what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, and basically how we're trying to impact the community. So if you would like to support, you can support by being a volunteer, or you can support via donations, depending on how you feel you can best support. Once again, and we are here to obviously provide resources to those in need. So that's the main goal. So, it's really nice to see everyone here, because I believe that at some point we are all stressed at one point. So it will be really good to get real life tips on how to manage stress and anxiety, should I say. So the agenda for today will be to discuss the mission and the reason why we've created the CTV Foundation. We will also have a little brief moment of me going through the team structure and the speakers for today. And then Loretta Olabisi will go and start with the workshop, the stress management workshop. So this is our mission statement. So the CTV Foundation is a church charity, and it stands for Communion of True Vineyard Church. With this said, we are here to help everyone and support everyone and meet everyone's need, no matter what their religious background is, or no matter what culture and background they're from, basically. So we are here to provide support to the community and the wider community. We are here to empower individuals as well and collaborate with different organizations. So we're trying to expand and collaborate with different charity organizations to drive innovation and to connect with those in need as well. So we're just all about providing the best services as possible for everyone who needs support and help. And this is just showing that, we're here to help the community grow. So we're here to create safe space and for community and safe environment, safe, a safe, sound space for everyone. We're here to build the community, and we're here to help the community as well. So these are just a few of our team members. We have, myself as the program manager. We have the events manager, who's Rue. We have the recruitment specialist, Trevisia. And we have the financial consultant, who is Olajide. Fumi as the other events manager, and Lanre, who is our social media specialist. This is another wider scope of the team members, but I won't go too much into detail because I know we don't have much time. But these are a list of our other members as well and who are supporting within the charity. These are the projects that are lined up. Some of the online sessions are not on here yet, but we will be sending out the online program. We've got all the types of topics we'll be touching during the programs as well. So yeah, at a later point, I'll put that out there so that everyone can have access to it and know and decide basically which program they want to come to. So, our speaker is Loretta Olabisi. She has over 10 years of experience in mental health. And Loretta is a psychotherapist, like I mentioned. She's very flexible and she has a down to earth approach, empowering people to recognize their strengths, reach their goals, and grow through mature learning. So that is what Loretta is here for, and she is here to give us a great presentation. So I will stop my slides, Loretta, and yeah, if you would like to introduce yourself further and take over. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for coming. I know that some of you may have come to our previous workshop, for some of you this may be your first time, and I'm hopeful that we can all learn something from each other today, myself included. I'm just gonna start the slide so we can get started. Just whilst I'm doing that, if you're able to, if anyone's open to, if you can put on your camera. If not, please engage with the chat, because I'd like to try and make this as interactive as possible. Also, I just want to emphasize that it's a confidential space. So anything that's said here, I guess beyond, the stress management factual information, you please want to keep it in this space. Um, Let me just open. We still have some people coming in as well, so just let them in. Okay. Vicky, if you just want to stop sharing. Okay. So as stated, we did want to spend today kind of thinking a bit more about stress and hopefully a bit more about ways that we can learn how to manage our stress more effectively and kind of navigate stressful situations and build our confidence in being able to cope with some of the life stresses that we may encounter day to day, or some of the ones that, may be a bit more chronic. Um, so we just want to start. Let's go to the next slide. I just want to share some of the objectives. So we want to think about what stress is, how it affects us physically and psychologically, thinking about ways to recognize stress in ourselves, then think about more practical methods of managing that. And then hopefully towards the end, we'll be able to share with each other our learning about stress and ways to navigate that. Just before we kind of get into more depth about today's topic, I want to ask everyone to maybe use the chat box to share an emoji about how they're feeling currently. Seeing someone coming through. Okay. Oh, Trevisa, we can't see yours. Okay. Chat's getting quite active now.
I am trying to figure out how to do the emoji. I'll just say, come see, come some.
Well, we've got a wide range of different moods in the room today. Oh my goodness. Seems like this workshop can definitely be needed and beneficial. 'Cause going off some of the emojis I'm seeing so far, I almost feel like I need to brush up on my emoji dictionary. Okay, we got any more coming through? Okay, we've had quite a few. I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but as I said, feel like I need to brush up on my emoji dictionary. Who is open to kind of sharing what they meant by their emoji? I'm gonna ask, um, okay, Jide said that his kind of means feeling content. Is anyone else willing to share? It could be, you can unmute or you can put it in the chat.
Hi everyone, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Marcella speaking. In terms of my emoji, I'd say the reason why I put that face is because I've just come back from holiday, so I feel so good, but I'm just kind of a bit anxious to go back to work. So,
Oh,
I'm coming to see commissar at the moment, but I think I was at peace like a good 24 hours ago. But coming back to reality, I'm just like, oh, so yeah.
thanks for sharing with Saya. Hopefully we can kind of tap into some of that relaxed energy and then hopefully we can kind of diffuse or kind of start to learn about how to alleviate some of that kind of mountain anxiety about returning back to work.
Perfect. Thank you.
Um, mm, Mixed feelings. Okay. Thanks for sharing, everyone. As I said, we do have a variety of different emotions in the room, which is really interesting. We are actually going to have a segment later on where we do talk about emotions a bit more. So I'll be interested to hear even a bit more about your thoughts and different ways that you try to identify emotions or kind of make sense of what you're feeling or how you know what you're feeling. So we just want to kind of go back to our slides. And we want to start with thinking about what stress is. When we use the term stress, what are we referring to? You know, what's people's understanding of what we mean by the term stress? Tired? Hmm. Feeling overwhelmed? So again, we're getting some physical symptoms coming through. Unhappy. Stress could definitely have an impact on our mood and how we're feeling emotionally. Any other thoughts about, what people mean by stress? Anxious, yeah. Pressured. Pressured is a really, really good term because when we think about stress, it tends to, refer to the disconnect between, the many demands that we have and our ability to cope with them or how able we feel to cope with those. Just letting a few more people in. Okay, so just to summarize, we had unhappy, feeling overwhelmed, tired, not at ease, not relaxed, anxious, pressured. Stress is when our body requires an MOT. I like that one as well because stress tends to be an indicator that we need to, bring our attention. to an unmet need. I just want to share, actually, before I share more information about stress, as we've kind of seen in some of the comments, we have flustered come up as well. It's very much linked to our body's stress hormone. Our hormones rise and fall throughout the day, kind of depending on our needs. Stress hormones does play a function in our lives, some not positive, but useful function in terms of stress actually might help us to wake up in the morning. Lower degrees of stress can help us to be able to focus, to learn, to remember things. But when the stress hormone boils over, it gets to a place where we're ineffective. So I've got this diagram here to kind of demonstrate this a bit further. So as you see, when we have low stress levels, sorry, I want to talk about, I guess, the different axes first. So we have on one side performance, on the other side, we have stress levels. So we do see a bell curve here. So to a certain extent, depending on how intense the levels of anxieties are, it can cause us to have up to optimal levels of performance. So see here where it's lower, or when we're not as aroused, we can see we can find ourselves feeling quite bored. It could be even below our comfort zone. But as that stress levels increased, we kind of feel more alert, more engaged. Then we get to a point where we feel, to some degree challenged, and then we reach that peak. Anything after that peak is when we start to find ourselves becoming more distressed. And that kind of aligns with some of the things that we saw in the chat about people's understanding or, recognition of what stress means. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is to find a balance between that physiological mental arousal and then kind of being able to capitalize on that whilst not getting to the place where it becomes too extreme. And then, we have two types of anxiety as well. So we think of, sorry, not anxiety, stress. When we think about stress, we also want to be thinking about acute versus chronic stress. So acute tends to be more short-term, short-lived, might just last a couple minutes. Whereas, when we think about chronic stress, that might be more persistent over weeks or months, or, unfortunately for some people, even years. When we think about those two terms, chronic versus acute stress, what kind of examples can we think of things that might cause us acute stress? Pressure from work, an exam, bereavement. Yeah, so far we've got, so let me just admit more people coming in. We've got some things that might be considered significant life events, if we're talking about bereavement, moving home. And then, we also have some other ones that might be day to day. So like pressure from work, an exam. Okay, we've got other ones, deadlines. So we got that coming in as well. So we can see how examples of day-to-day marital issues as well. Let me just give it a moment to see if we have any more coming in. Health issues. Yeah. So whilst we kind of acknowledge that stress is quite physical, but yeah, there could be unrelated physical health issues that we could be having, and kind of managing that, then that can our physical issues can be compounded by the stress. I know we've said we're focusing on acute stress. Another thing that we use to try and understand the physical symptoms of stress and ways that it presents in the why we feel it in such a physical way is this concept called the flight or fight response. So the idea behind this concept is that, really, really long time ago, when we were navigating the world, living in the wild, we required a very physical response to be able to protect us or equip us in navigating very real world dangers a lot more physical. So just really kind of picture ourselves, or our ancestors a long time ago. What kind of dangers might they have been experiencing or encountering day to day? Imagine we're living in the wild. Exactly. Predators, lions, to animals, hunting, going through that process of trying to um, find sustenance for ourselves. Adverse weather changes, absolutely. Climate, so environmental, long periods without food. When we think about, some of these things that are coming, transport, so kind of moving from one place to another as well. I know there's a lot of surviving, general survival. And yeah, that's what we're seeing as a common theme across these different examples. We're really seeing that, I guess, some of the day-to-day things that we wouldn't necessarily encounter now, we had to think a lot harder about them back in the day. So it was very much everything kind of linked to survival, whether it's food, shelter, moving around, keeping ourselves safe as well. So as you can imagine, based on some of these examples, we would have to be able to physically fight, or when we talk about flight, it meant running away. And in order to be able to do that, our body created a system that activates in a response to whichever situation. So, for example, oh, before I kind of go through examples of what that was like, when we think about anxiety, what are those physical responses?
So do you mean like what happens in terms of when you have anxiety?
How
Sorry.
do we know how do we know physically when we feel anxious? So for example, yeah, so we got panic coming up. How do we know we're feeling panicky? How would you know?
So for example, stomach, sometimes your stomach aches. Is that
Yeah,
one?
precisely. So I'll
Yeah.
start with that one. So when we think about stomach ache, having stomach pain, it might be quite confusing as to how would that have helped us to be able to fight or to run away. And actually, what tends to happen is that because our digestive system is seen as less important to be able to protect ourselves or to fight, it slows down our digestive system. And that could be the reason why sometimes we might be feeling butterflies in our stomach. We had here things like sweating. So again, if we were to fight or to run away, our body activates the sweating to be able to cool ourselves down because we're activated. The adrenaline kicks in, we're trying to defend ourselves or to run away. We have heavy breathing. In this instance, what's happening is our body's trying to be able to allow us to take in more oxygen, to pass oxygenated blood around our system so that we can be spring into action. So we find that there's various different systems that are either triggered or how will I describe it? Caused to calm down so that we can focus on the parts of our body that can activate us. So our heart, our lungs, we might feel tension in our muscles. And part of the reason that could be, so for example, if we were attacked, think about if you were punched. If we're tense, the impact is less damaging than if we had been relaxed. So that's why we might experience tension in our body. We have heart palpitations. Our heart is beating a lot faster to take that oxygenated blood around our system to be able to fight and defend ourselves. I know we're still kind of talking about the past and, our ancestors are navigating the earth. So it might be confusing as to, okay, we don't have these dangers in day-to-day life now. So why is this system still kicking into action in the same way? The reason why that is because even though we're not facing physical dangers like we did in the past, the things that we experience day to day now still activate the system in the same way. So to some degree, let's say we were crossing the road and a car was hurtling towards us and it was going very, faster than we could cross, of course, that still flight or flight response will be very relevant even in today's day and age. But actually, as we saw in the examples, it isn't as helpful as it used to be. So let's say an exam, that was something that came up as an example of a day-to-day stressor now. We feel attacked because an exam is very, very important to us. You know, the implications of the exam could feel threatening. So, for example, if we're worried if we don't pass, it could affect our livelihood or our future. So we still feel in some type of danger, but it's not physical. So where we, stress management can come in is that we want to be able to, as we acknowledged earlier, benefit to some degree from the alertness, the way it allows us to address challenges in the moment, but manage that so it doesn't kind of get to the point where it boils over to the space where we're not coping as effectively. I hope that kind of makes sense so far. Is anyone willing to kind of give some feedback via voice about flight or fight response, what they knew about it before, or kind of what they just kind of learned about it now? Or does anyone have any questions about the flight or fight response?
No, I knew about it before. You explained it quite well. I don't really have much to add to it, but yeah.
Okay.
I think for me, I definitely know about it with the line of work that I do as well, but I think it's just trying to balance it and finding that correct balance can be kind of a bit difficult. So I think I'm kind of intrigued in terms of what else you're going to be talking about.
Mm. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Okay, we'll just go to, oh, sorry. Okay, so we were talking, just to summarize, we were talking about acute versus chronic stress. And that was just an additional input into some of the things that fuel that kind of acute stress. That whereas with chronic stress, we may not experience that heart racing, we may not experience the butterflies in our stomach because it's more chronic. That's where we now find it kind of manifesting in maybe more long-term illnesses. Overall, we might be feeling very run down. We might be having, brain fog. We really would find that we're really struggling to do things that we may have done quite effortlessly in the past. It's going to take us to So here we have our stress bucket metaphor. For people who had attended the previous workshop, you might be familiar with this. So essentially, we use this metaphor just to kind of understand, I guess, the connection between our coping mechanisms and then stress factors. So we all have a bucket, for each of us, depending on how we grow up or, our levels of resilience or genetic factors, that kind of equates to how large our bucket might be. And then the taps kind of represent different ways of relieving that stress. So going back to that curve diagram, so just think of it, the top of the bucket is where we find that we're getting to the place where we start to experience distress. So as you can see, the more taps we have or the more stress relievers we have in our life, then the easier it is going to be to kind of keep it on an even keel. So I'm just going to go to different methods of stress relief. So we have here physical, cognitive. So cognitive relates to our mind, kind of emotional relief. We have sensory and, connection based. So our interactions or our relationships with others. And then we kind of have micro relievers. So these are things that can help, for example, that flight or fight response or that more acute distress that's more short-lived. So in terms of body-based or kind of physical stress relievers, we have breathing techniques, which we'll demonstrate a bit later today. We have progressive muscle relaxation, where's the process we go about releasing tension from the body. Stretching, light movement, that could equate it to exercise. Of course, things like going for a walk, maybe doing something that kind of wakes us up or kind of interrupts that thought cycle, that negative thought cycle. So things like kind of splashing water on our face, that can reset our system, especially when it comes to like flight or fight response. And then, more practical, accessible things such as shaking out tension out of our body. I think many of us will be, I guess, most familiar with breathing exercises. Um, as I said, we'll go through a few of those today. For now, I'm just going to talk a bit more about emotional relief. Um, in order to do that, we want to kind of think about our emotions in the first instance. In order for us to be able to work through these, we need to be able to initially recognize and name our feelings. I know that might seem like quite a simple task to do, but actually, what we tend to find is that just because of the way we utilize language, it can cause us to kind of have a disconnect with what we're truly feeling. So, for example, let's say we've made a mistake, and sometimes people might say something like, I feel stupid, but stupid isn't actually an emotion. One of the tools to be able to name our emotions, that emotions tend to be one word. So we could be able to kind of name that one word, and then it'll be very kind of clear about what we're experiencing in the moment. Over here, I know that this is quite an expansive um example of emotion. First of all, I just want to check in is can people read this? Is it big enough?
Yes. Well, actually, no, we need it a bit bigger.
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit bigger, if possible. Yeah.
It's because it's quite wide, that's why. Anyway, I know a few's cut off, but okay. Is that okay for everyone?
Can everyone?
Entering. I'm just gonna assume it's okay. Yeah, so this tool can be really, really helpful for naming emotions. When we think about the center, these are our core emotions, and everything kind of going out from that stems from our immediate core emotions. We have the more complex emotions the further we move out. So the middle ring is stronger versions of, so the, as we're going out, those are stronger versions of the inner emotions initially identified. Let me just bring this up. I know that in the beginning, we spoke about where we had the emojis and we were kind of acknowledging how emojis can mean different things for different people. So just to kind of go a bit further from that, the more we're able to become more in tune with what we're feeling, then the better equipped we're going to be able to recognize how that might be fueling negative thoughts. And from there, get to a place where we're able to challenge negative thoughts that are fueling the feelings of stress. We're going to come back. So I want us to kind of hold this in mind. I might come back to it later. But we're going to use this to assist us when we get to the thought challenging element. But the first step to be able to challenge stress related thoughts is being able to name our emotions, um, and then be able to kind of build that confidence in managing them when they do arise. We can't stop emotions, but what we can do is that we can challenge the thoughts associated with them, which will then in turn hopefully get us to a place where we start to experience this shift in what we might be feeling emotionally, especially if it's negative. Okay. I know we just kind of started from emotion and touched a bit on physical. Another type of physical type of a common type of physical coping strategy is something called grounding. So grounding exercises help us to bring our attention back to the moment, back to the here and now. And when we're feeling overwhelmed, feeling very anxious, that can cause us to feel quite disconnected. You know, one of the things that we use to distinguish between anxiety and depression is that anxiety tends to be future orientated worries, whereas depression might be would be attributed to thinking, being stuck in the past. So we're ruminating, we're kind of churning things over and over in our minds, regret, blame. Those are the kind of things that might be associated with depressive type symptoms. But anxiety kind of stress related symptoms is very much future orientated. So grounding can be really, really useful, as I said, for kind of keeping us in the present. One of the most prominent grounding methods is called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, which forces us to tap into what we might be feeling. Of course, we know our senses, what we might, see around us, what we might taste or touch. And the idea is that keeps us more present in the moment and kind of disrupts that cycle that's keeping us future focused and overwhelmed. So I've just got a YouTube video to demonstrate what we mean by that 5-4-3-2-1 technique. So yeah, just whilst I'm loading that, if everyone just make sure they're in a comfortable position, and I'll just set this up. Okay.
The 5-4-3-2-1
Sorry.
is a grounding exercise that can help you stay in the moment and avoid negative thinking and worry. You can do this exercise anywhere, at home, at school, in the car, or even in the middle of a crowd. You can do it sitting, standing, or laying down. Counting down from 5, use your senses to list things around you. Make an effort to notice details about these things. This is how to do it. Start by breathing deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth. Then slowly look at your surroundings. Find 5 things that you can see around you. Maybe you see a colorful poster on the wall, the spider web on the bookshelf, the lamp on the nightstand with the red shade, the cat sleeping peacefully on the chair, the cactus on the dresser that has finally bloomed. Then list 4 things that you can touch. The warm mug in your hands, the soft comforter on the bed, the denim of your jeans, the scratchy carpet under your feet. Next, listen for 3 things you can hear. Maybe the ticking of a clock, the quiet hum of your computer, the sound of traffic from outside. Now try to find 2 things that you can smell. The tea in your mug, the clean scent of your clothes. Finally, list 1 emotion that you feel. This is a way to ground yourself so you can feel present in the moment and in control of your surroundings. Now you try.
Okay, so just to reiterate, that exercise is very much to kind of manage those physical symptoms and ground us to be really focused on the immediate moment, the here and now, especially when we talk about those overwhelming symptoms that can really kind of disrupt our thinking process because they, physical symptoms really do capture our attention in a way that can be difficult to be able to easily relieve. One of the reasons why this one's, I guess, preferred amongst many of them is because one, we can do it in a variety of different situations. But aside from that, because it's very and stress symptoms can be very physical, it's helpful to have something physical to counteract that as well. But we also considered part of the reason why we're having a flight or fight response or why we're feeling these stress symptoms is because of our perceptions of a situation, our thinking process. So another type of relaxation or technique, stress management technique that I wanted to share with you is what we call, sorry, what's the name? Oh, mindfulness. Mindfulness is a bit different to grounding. So whereas grounding focuses on our physical being and keeping us present, mindfulness gets us acquainted with some of the different thoughts going through our mind and then getting used to allowing them to pass without engaging with them. We are going to talk about how we can engage with thoughts and challenge them more directly, but kind of depending on our levels of anxiety, that's not the easiest skill to do when we're feeling very overwhelmed. So as I said, mindfulness helps us to kind of think about notice the thoughts, notice what we're feeling, and then allowing it to pass without engaging with the thought. But as I kind of share this exercise with you, hopefully it'll be a bit clearer.
I'm Tom. This is the story of my bus of life. On the journey, I pick up lots of passengers, memories, thoughts, emotions, some pleasant, some not so pleasant. Sometimes handling them can be tricky.
You'd come this way again. Same old, same old. You're pathetic.
What a grumpy lot. Don't worry, driver. I can sort them out.
Don't even think about going down there.
Okay.
That won't never work out.
Where's that bus going? It looks exciting.
What do you think you're doing? You think you have what it takes? You'll just fail like last time. Dream on. What's the point? It's too much work. Why take the risk?
Haha, it's not like it's your choice. This is my bus.
Okay, I'll turn around. Just be quiet.
Listen, let's make a secret deal. You keep doing what you're doing, and I'll keep the passengers quiet for you.
Okay then, back to the same old road. Just so you know, I'm not happy about this. I like driving buses. What I'd really love to do is be a race driver.
Loser. What do you think you're doing?
Better stick to what you know, or the deal is off.
Right, that's it. This is my bus. Get off.
Yeah? Fight me. Let's see where that gets you. You pathetic excuse for a driver. Your bus ain't going anywhere now. I don't know why you bother driving.
Hey, what's going on in that bus? Things seem to be happening differently.
You're not allowed to go that way. We've got rules.
Thanks for the feedback, guys, but this is my bus.
Maybe I don't need to get rid of this bunch. They could just come with me for the ride.
Right? Still a loser. About this.
No, what about the deal?
Racetrack. That's where I want to go.
See, we told you. What were you thinking?
You could never be a racing driver. Just play it safe.
Hang on tight, guys. Here we go.
I'm just putting the slide back up. Okay, here we are again. Okay, so I know we had a lot going on there, and of course it's a metaphor. I just wanted to check in with you. What was your kind of understanding of some of the things that that mindfulness exercise was trying to demonstrate about how we, I guess, live our day-to-day lives without interacting with these stressful or anxiety-provoking thoughts? Again, of course, you can use the chat or you can vocalize um, how we found that or what we understood from that metaphor. We've got 26 people in the room. I know we got, you know, different kind of opinions or different kind of takeaways from that exercise. Let's go with Kwaku. Kwaku, what did you make of that exercise? Oh, can I simplify the question? Okay. So we saw this gentleman, he was driving a bus. So kind of let's start with who did the passengers represent? Negative thoughts, absolutely. Inner thoughts. And as we could see, he was driving the bus. Um, he was thinking of telling them to get off the bus, but then he saw the other bus, and the other bus was, going along, and that kind of helped him to see that, okay, even though these passengers or these thoughts are rowdy, I can travel with them. And that's the big, big crux about mindfulness is that we can become quite frustrated because we're trying to get rid of the thoughts or what we're feeling, but it's thinking about how can we cope even though they're still there. Of course, the ultimate aim is for us to be able to challenge our thoughts and for some of these thoughts not to be as problematic. But in the moment, that's what, if we can get to a place of mastering, not engaging with our thoughts, kind of recognizing them, also recognizing that, they're hurtful or we're not saying we're ever going to like them or enjoy them, but kind of recognizing, they're part of our human experience and we don't have to engage with the thought. in the way that, he was struggling with at the beginning. Um, I don't know if you noticed, what happened when he kept taking the same old road. So we had a part where one of the passengers was like, "Oh, we'll have a deal. You take the same road and I'll keep the voices quiet." What did that mean why did the voices or why did the passengers or the thoughts get quieter because he was taking the same old road?
Um, Maybe I could venture a thought. Maybe it was a case of feeling a bit of what do you call it? Like how do I say it? Feeling comfortable in just doing the same, same thing. So he found a bit of safety in that psychologically.
Yeah, that is spot on. I could see in the thought comments as well, someone said because he was used to them, thoughts are still there. Yeah, because if we're staying in a situation that we're used to or in our comfort zone, we might find those thoughts are quieter. So we might find ourselves avoiding or not trying new things or not challenging ourselves. But then what we tend to find is that, as we saw, he wasn't able to follow his dreams. He was stuck in that same cycle. It may feel comfortable, but it's restrictive. So that's the thing. That's something that we want to be aware of as well. The role avoidance can play, and we can adopt that as a way of trying to manage the thoughts. But ultimately, it's not the most effective way of dealing with this. And what we tend to find over time, we find discomfort even in that comfort zone because we become less and less confident. And then, even things that we used to navigate quite easily, as I was kind of mentioning much earlier on, they can become a lot more difficult. And just aware of time. So I guess one more question I'd ask is, um, why do you think he was feeling okay? And then there was like a muddy area, and then he got past that. What did that kind of what did you guys kind of take from that aspect? Um, does Vanessa want to say something?
Sorry, I was thinking something, but I was thinking, should I say that? Okay, so I was gonna say that sometimes when you follow your dream or when you come out of your comfort zone, you might hit a little obstacle, a little tiny obstacle. So you just have to plow through it. That's what I was gonna
Yeah,
say. I'll come off
yeah.
now.
No, no, no. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's spot on as well. I could see in the comments you also had that the journey might not always be straightforward. Absolutely. So even if we kind of feel like, oh, things are going well and we're building that confidence and the thoughts are not so much problematic. So what we saw is that um those thoughts started to come up again, saying, "Oh, see, we told you," and things like that. But it's thinking about how we kind of push forward through, even when, those thoughts might come back up again. But we kind of use that, our grounding exercises to kind of shift our focus. So, for example, we saw that he put on the radio, so we're shifting our attention from the thoughts to other things that might be, more relevant or more important to us. I know we have a limited amount of time, but just to kind of give you a general overview of, different types of um, techniques that can help. One was he kind of more focused on the physical, maybe acute stress response. Another was kind of focused on the cognitive aspect and our thoughts. I did mention breathing exercises. I don't think we'll have a time to go through that, but I can send through some afterwards. But we have deep breathing, which people might be very familiar with in terms of being able to regulate our breath. Box breathing can be really helpful in terms of our concentration. So box breathing is where we breathe in four, breathe out four, pause for four. We have so many different kind of variations, but the good thing about breathing, again, because it's something that we can do in a variety of different situations, people don't necessarily need to know what's happening. And especially if it involves counting, that's a further distraction that can keep us grounded in the moment. Um, As I said, we have connecting with people close to us. Before we finish that, I want to try and see if we can talk about thought reframing. So, of course, when we talked about the mindfulness, that was about how can we continue our day without interacting with thoughts. But that only works for so long. So, when it comes to thought reframing, that's about how can we get to a place of challenging the most distressing thoughts or the ones that hold us back most. So, I've got an example here. So the stressful thought in the initial instance is, I'm terrible at handling stress. I always freak out. Um, when we're feeling bad, we're not always able to articulate our thought in this way. This is why I introduced the emotion wheel. A lot of the time, if we're feeling bad and we know, so no, I'm feeling uncomfortable in my body, if we can name the emotion, it's a lot easier to be able to identify thoughts. So in this instance, we have, I'm terrible at handling stress. I always freak out. So in this instance, the emotion might be feeling quite scared, might be having doubts. So those are the kind of emotions that person might be feeling, being able to identify this thought. We have some questions that enable us to reframe. I really want to emphasize the word reframe because sometimes we can feel quite tempted to lean towards maybe reframing a thought, challenging a thought by kind of thinking about it in a positive way. But I really want to emphasize some situations don't always have a positive. This process isn't about just shifting to positive ways of thinking. It's more focused on what might be a more helpful way of thinking that will help me to feel more confident in being able to navigate this situation. Ultimately, there's two things that we try to target. We either want to be thinking about, am I overestimating the danger or am I underestimating my ability to cope? So, as I said, with this thought we have, I'm terrible at handling stress. I always freak out. Some questions that can be helpful for broadening our perspective is this 100% true? Would I say this to a friend? So that can help with being more objective about how we're viewing the situation. What's a kinder, more helpful way to see this? I can't emphasize enough. We speak to ourselves in a way that we would never dream of speaking to someone else like that. So it's about how can we get to a place of compassion and being able to maybe think about if it was a friend that came to us or a family member or a colleague, would I say that to them? What would I say to them? The same way it's not okay to speak to people with and disdain or being hypercritical or mean. It's not okay to speak to ourselves like that either. And it's being able to kind of pull ourselves up on that. I guess because people can't necessarily hear the things that we're saying to ourselves, that's how we can find ourselves, being quite caught up in being, very punitive in how we handle ourselves. In this instance, we have the reframed thought goes from, I'm terrible at handling stress and I always freak out to, I've had tough moments, but I'm learning better ways to cope. The benefits of this, it's more realistic, encouraging, and also, would help with those physical symptoms because we're shifting from, danger, things are going to go wrong to outcome that, feels, more hopeful. When I talk about not kind of leaning too much towards positive ways of thinking, ways that can, an alternative to that is thoughts that are based on facts. So the more we're able to pick up on maybe past experiences, we have concrete evidence to challenge our negative thoughts. So even when we're really being bullied by our thoughts, ultimately, because we're counteracting it with facts, we're more likely to see a shift in that way of thinking. So that's like a really quick overview. Does anyone want to suggest the thought that we can challenge together, for our last exercise? Could be any kind of stressful thought. And then we'll round up after this. Just for the sake of time, I would just suggest something. So let's say we had a stressful thought being something bad is going to happen. How could we test that thought that something bad is going to happen?
I'm not quite sure sorry, can you explain it a bit better? Because I'm thinking, I mean, the only way you can test that out is by doing the thing, right? So unless you do it, then you won't know if something bad is going to happen.
I guess you're right. So let's use an example. Let's add context. So let's say somebody was going for an interview and they had a thought that I'm going to say the wrong thing. So that's what they kind of mean by something bad is going to happen. How would we test that thought with, let's say, is this 100% true?
The only way you can test it really is by going to the interview, you know?
How about if we've been to interviews in the past? That would kind of be a way of kind of gathering evidence. We kind of think about like factual experiences. But as I said, it's all we going back really, really to the root of what we're trying to achieve, overestimating the danger or underestimating our ability to cope. Because we're not just trying to prove ourselves wrong, we could question, okay, what happens if I did say the wrong thing in an interview? How could you respond to that?
By making sure you're prepared before you have that interview.
So it could be thinking about preparation. It could be considering how knowledgeable we already are. It could be considering previous experiences. It could also be questioning, okay, let's say I did say the wrong thing. What does that mean? I could correct myself. I might stumble on my words. That doesn't mean I'm a bad applicant. Because that's the thing, as I said about our ultimate conclusions, where sometimes we're really overestimating the danger, or even if that thing was to go wrong, or we were to say the same thing, that doesn't mean the whole interview is a catastrophe, for instance. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of share an example, but then also kind of go through one together.
If
So
sorry, if I want to, I can say for me, I do say all thoughts are lies. So I don't really believe in my thoughts, so I don't really want to stress myself overthinking over issues that is not actually real. So if I'm having that thought, I just try as much as possible to just take it off my mind and face what is real.
thank you so much for that. That's really, really actually insightful because that's similar to what we were talking about, the grounding. It's us recognizing my mind does this and my mind might try to bully me because I'm doing something different. I'm doing something uncomfortable. I'm doing something I'm not used to. And then, doubling back and choosing not to engage with that because we know that doesn't necessarily reflect reality. So I will end there. So I know there was so much to kind of cover and it was a quick stop shop. Um, so what I'd really kind of encourage you kind of moving forward is, being able to kind of recognize what your personal signs of stress are, and then, kind of creating your own plan of how you'd respond to stress. So whether it's something physical, whether it's becoming more confident in challenging our thoughts, or, ways that we can lean into our support network. But I can send through some tools to, if you're interested in kind of building your knowledge on this even more. So just to kind of wrap up, so stress is normal. Unfortunately, stress is part of our physiological response. We can't get rid of it, but we can develop our confidence in navigating stress. Being aware is the first step, recognizing what kind of stresses us, how it kind of shows up in our body and in our mind. And then, step by step, by introducing some of these strategies, many of which, aren't time taxing, then we can kind of get to a place where, as I said, we get to a place where we start to build our confidence in navigating stresses, but also being able to recognize how we overestimate situations as well. And here's some resources which I can also send. So I can share these resources where you can get more information, in addition to some worksheets, particularly linked to thought challenging, because I know we went through that quite quickly and that takes a bit of skill to be able to develop. Any final thoughts, questions, or anyone that wants to share what they learned today? If people could come off the mic to share, just because it'll be a bit quicker as we need to come to an end. I'm gonna go back to Basayo because I know you spoke up at the beginning and
Oh dear. I think it's been so insightful, and I think from what I've learned is kind of for me, the stress really overtakes my thoughts. So actually finding other ways to channel it and manage it better. So I think with some of the resources that you've put on, I wanted to message the arts if we'll get a copy of that. So that's something I'm gonna definitely utilize because it's easier said than done. But I'm being very hopeful. So thank you so much. This has been very, very insightful, honestly.
You're very welcome. Yeah, so this, was anyone else on the, I forget who said the one else talking. As I said, just because of time, I do have to end there for today. But of course, if you have any questions, you can maybe put in the chat and then I can message you more directly. And I will share resources. As I said, it was just a quick overview, but I'll send some resources so you can read into anything you're interested a bit more.
Thank you so much, Loretta. That was amazing as usual. Thank you so much. Just if everyone can please send their email and put it in the chat, then I can. So what I will do is all the resources that Loretta has shared today, I will put it together and then we will then be able to send the package to everyone. So please put your email address into the chat. I hope everyone has 2 minutes. I just have a brief further detail to go through. So so that we can quickly let everyone enjoy the rest of the Saturday. I hope everyone can see my screen. These are the online sessions that will be taking place in the next coming weeks and months. So the next one is going to be discovering purpose and goal setting. So we are approaching mid-year review. So if you want to come to the session and prepare for the next 6 months of the year, please do come. It will be very fun, interactive, like today's session. And then we have all these other sessions that will be taking place. So we'll send more information about that. Sorry. And just to add to what Loretta was saying, mental health challenges don't define a person. It doesn't define us and the ability to live, work, and succeed. Our next presentation, our next face-to-face event is called It Doesn't Define Me, and it will be taking place on the 12th of July. So more information will be sent out to everyone. So I hope everyone can make it for that too. So this is the next online event. It will be basically conducted by myself. And like I said, it will be discovering purpose and goal setting. I will share the link to everyone today so that you can also register for that and get your tickets and join. It will be on the same Zoom link ID, so please save it. And I will also share the Zoom link ID closer to the time. Also, we are currently, 2 seconds. We have books that we are selling. This is called the Wellness Journal, and we are selling it for £10. If you would like it to be delivered to your house, it's £12.99. It's a really nice journal. It has like check-in points and places where you can write and document your day, how you're feeling, and journal how you're feeling. So this journal is a way for us to obviously help with our donation and our funding. As we said, majority of our sessions are free. It's basically free. And we basically depend on donations. So if you would like to purchase a book, that is a way in which you can donate, or you can just donate any amount at any point. So yeah, thank you so much. Once again, we will be sending a feedback form to everyone. So please put your email if you haven't already. And I've said it 10,000 times. And we will share a survey link. We would like to know how you found today, and we would like your feedback so that we can continue to provide this service to everyone and more services to people, so that, you guys can have all you need to manage stress and manage anxiety and continue to live in this hard world that we're living in. So yeah. And lastly, we'd just like to say thank you so much for everyone's attendance. We hope to see you in the future attendance. And this is our social media platform. Please make sure you follow us on social media. It is CTV Foundation Projects. That's our Instagram account. You can also use your phone to get the QR code. It will take you straight into the Instagram. So please follow us on Instagram, and so that we can build another further community. So thank you, everyone. Apologies for obviously going over the time by 15 minutes. Hopefully, in our next session, we'll probably put in an extra 15 minutes, because obviously these are useful tools and there's, you know, interaction happening. So we'll definitely factor that in for our next program. So have a lovely day, everyone. And thank you so much, Loretta. And thank you, everyone, for attending. Okay, bye. Oh, lastly, this will be on YouTube as well. So for those who have missed this session, you can see this again on YouTube, or if you would like more insight or you want to replay, you can find the session on YouTube. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a blessed Saturday.